Breeze currently holds the record for the stalest agent meta in the game, and it's partially due to the map's design. If you were to lock Brimstone instead of Viper in a competitive lobby with Immortals, you're essentially asking to get flamed, or even dodged. But is this stagnant and otherwise strict agent meta really as optimal as players make it out to be, and can Viper finally be dethroned as the meta controller on the game's biggest map? Welcome back to Esports Driven, and today we're going to theory craft the possibilities of incorporating other smoke agents on Breeze in an attempt to freshen up the current roster. And you'll want to stick around because Viper might just have a new competitor on her hands. So before we can cover the other smokes, let's first lay out why Viper has reigned so dominantly on this map. When Breeze first debuted back in April of last year, people likely found the sheer size intimidating and found it particularly difficult to isolate angles too. This is also around the time that Viper was in her best state ever, as in patch 2.06 she received her first mega buff, including the infamous 50 instant decay mechanic. This factor alone is what made people lean towards Viper's utilization on Breeze, as her wall lets her team safely cross to the opening area of the bomb site without worrying about being shot from a ridiculously far away angle. And with this, players got really lazy and ultimately forgot how the sites were designed to be played, and just figured that the diagonal walls were mandatory. Another reason Viper may have been so wedged into the meta was her stalling capabilities as a defender. Most top level players just slap her onto B site to stuff the choke point with mollies and various kinds of poison. But what are we missing out on by relying so heavily on a big clunky wall? First off, 3 of the 4 Viper abilities are smokes. That alone severely limits what she's capable of over the course of a round, not to mention her being completely useless on a retake aside from the snake bites. Every other controller fits all of their smokes into one slot, and this alone gives them so much more purpose. So starting with this acknowledgement, let's discuss the other agents. So you'd think with so much ground to cover on Breeze, Brimstone would be a must pick with his stim beacon, and from dozens of other games running Brim over Viper, I'll say the stim is absolutely godsend, especially on the attacker side. The main criticism Brimstone receives is his short smoke range, and while the claim may have been valid years ago, 2 buffs later, it's actually surprising how many key areas he can access. First off, just for site executes alone, his iPad map hits every major area you'd ever want to smoke, and that goes for both bomb sites. On top of this, those 20-second smokes come in extra handy when having to cover lots of ground. Too often, it feels like Viper's smokes drop too early, and it always gets a teammate killed. Or with KO's dominating presence on the map, he can just shut the enemy Viper down virtually anytime he wants. This will never happen with Brimstone. We'll briefly cover Omen, as he's definitely not going to be the winning contender to replace Viper. A surprising strength he rocks though is getting value from his ultimate From the Shadows, which can be considered the worst ult in the game currently. Faking a bomb site and teleporting to the opposite side of the map is almost a guaranteed plant, and getting a nice flank on the attackers from a faraway area is always nice. But aside from that, there's not a whole ton of ways to get value from the Shrouded Step. His paranoia doesn't travel far enough to supply substantial value, and his smokes are far too brief, on top of having to send them out consecutively rather than simultaneously. Astra is in an interesting spot, as I'd be a bigger advocate for her usage if she was still in the pre-nerf state. Global utility is super strong on both sides, amazing for setting up defaults, helping defend bomb sites with her smokes and gravity well, and let's not forget the super OP ultimate Cosmic Divide. But with only having 4 stars, super long cooldowns, and her ult essentially being a slightly buffed Viper wall, she's an agent that has to fully capitalize on her utility, and there's not a lot of ways to place her stars down and get sustainant value from them. Still better than Omen though, that's for sure. So what advantage do we get by running down smokers over Viper? First off, we unlock so many possibilities across the map that usually gets untouched. Mid splits become so, and we mean so, much easier with the ability to place precise smokes on the key areas. Doing a mid to A split, smoke, stim down, molly somewhere, and just like that, your team pinching the whole site and actually taking advantageous fights rather than hiding behind a wall for cover. By not using the traditional Viper setups, you'll notice how nice it is to control the whole bomb site rather than just the opening 10% of it. With deeper site control, the defenders are tasked with crossing a choke point instead of mindlessly running at the very few positions the Viper wall lets your team take hold of. Dome smokers also set up better lurk plays too. By default smoking halls every round, so many free kills can be set up by flanking rotating defenders, or initiating a surprise hall split into the A site. So is that it? Is that our answer? Just no more Viper on her best map? Well, no. We're still in full support of this otherwise clunky controller having a place in the game's play cycle, but if you're really looking to up your Breeze win rate, surprise your enemies by picking Brimstone instead. He's the only other agent in his class that offers enough value over his counterparts to remain viable. We'll restate, the stim is crazy good for direct sight executes, long-lasting smokes are perfect for a big map like Breeze, his molly greatly outclasses Vipers, his ult outclasses Vipers, and while you might have more angles to worry about while attacking, the trade-off for more map control is unparalleled, especially since we already know mid-splits are so strong with him. We're not finished. As a defender, Brim's mollies for stalling out the attackers on the B side is just a cheaper alternative to what Viper's utility entails. Smoking the spike for a defuse may just win you out a surprise round too. What do you think of our analysis of using other controllers on Breeze? Will you be insta-locking Brimstone next time you queue for comp? And if you think we're trolling, we highly encourage you to try something new for a change, as it may just get you out of plat. If you enjoyed this guide, check out our video on the right where we explain the importance of having mid control and how controller agents play an integral role. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.